Welcome to Lopez Center's 2025 Home Tour. My name is Robert Harrison and I am the Assistant Director here at Lopez Center for Community and the Arts. We have a wonderful tour in store for you this year with Ken Kortge creating the videos again and taking us into the homes of 6 Lopezians. And we're in for a special treat. The theme this year is Lopez artists. And in addition to seeing the homes, we'll also get to go in and see their studios and hear about their artistic processes. Lopez Center for Community and the Arts and Lopez Artists Guild have a long history together, co-hosting art shows throughout the years, and with Lopez artists adorning our walls with beautiful artwork. One of my favorite parts about being at the Community Center is just how integral we are to the community and how involved we are in so many different facets of what goes on here. Whether or not it's at the skate park with kids learning to skate,
I like riding at a skateboard.
or advanced skaters taking advantage of the new space that was just opened last year, or at the Children's Center where vital childcare is provided for 1 to 5-year-olds in our community, or the farmers market where local vendors sell their goods on the weekends, or the Fertile Ground Community Garden, or the Sally's Garden Green Space, where people just come and enjoy a green space in the heart of Lopez Village. And of course, too, to people who come by and have lunch on the picnic tables here in the summer. Everyone is welcome. And all of this, of course, is in addition to the Community Center itself, where we host over 100 events throughout the year. It's wonderful just to see how much joy this brings to the community.
The Lopez Children's Center is grateful to Sally Bill for her gift of land that not only gave us a permanent home, but upon such a dynamic neighborhood and site where children can walk out the doors to programming at LCCA, to play at the skate park, to play at the soon-to-be music park, watch gardeners at Fertile Ground, and play at Sally's Garden South. What an amazing opportunity and place to grow up and learn.
Growing up on Lopez, I used the center for many things and attended many events, but one of my favorite memories was me and my best friend would get up on the stage after hours. Since my mom's the director, we had access and we would sing using the microphones and dance around and make up our own performances for ourselves to enjoy.
We're down here at the Community Center where we do the Lopez Uncovered Music Festival. This is our 5th year and it's been a wonderful collaboration between the Community Center and our organization, Salish Arts and Music. Another important part of that is the Lopez Original Theater, which is also produced here at the Community Center. And it's just a wonderful collaboration. Working with Robert and Janet is always a pleasure.
I would like to say a special thank you to our sponsors. They are the ones who make this event possible and provide vital support for the Community Center that allows us to stay an active and vibrant part of our community. And a thank you to the homeowners who so graciously invited us into their lives, their homes, and shared their artwork with us. And thank you to everyone who comes to the center and is a part of this community. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the 2025 Lopez Home Tour.
We just happened to be taking a trip around some of the islands. We stopped over here on Lopez, and this house was on the market. And we fell in love. We loved the unusual character of the house, and so we bought. We walked into this house, and I felt like we were outside. It had such a good feel to it.
For me, it's the sort of national park architecture.
Yes,
it makes
it
you
is.
feel that you're in a state park, a national park, and I'm always comfortable in those places. When we first saw this house, one of the features that we found actually attractive was the fact that there are boulders in the bathrooms, particularly in the large bathroom. I just feel that it brings some of the outdoors into the bathroom.
Structurally, with this house, we have not made many changes. The bones of the house were so wonderful that we really haven't done that much.
But what we have done is we have added a studio for you, and we have taken what used to be a small office with a big pot-bellied stove to make a studio for me.
It was heavily wooded, It was like an enchanted forest out in the front facing the water. In the back it was the same. It was heavily wooded. And so we've really transformed the exterior.
I remember a friend of ours coming to visit shortly after we'd bought it, and she was very tactful, but she said, I hope you don't mind me saying, but this needs a little editing. Annie is the gardener. I can do the grunt work, but
Yeah.
Annie does the creative part of the garden.
Yeah, and it's trial and error. I really like strategic planting, and I always have visions as an artist of what I want, but it really has been a lot of fun for me.
Well, I like the bedroom and the light in it. I like waking up. There's no curtains because there's nobody out there. And so I like waking up just at dawn or before dawn and seeing the water, looking out on the bay.
And I love the living area. You can have many people in here, and yet it's so inviting, and the fireplace was always such a draw for me. Peter has done a remarkable job with the pond. The pond came with the house, but we extended it a little bit. I think that's part of the fun for us in the big bedroom, that in the morning you can hear that pond.
So we built another deck looking out towards the bay, and Annie and I like to sit there in the evening in the summer because we are west facing, and so it's just really lovely to sit there and have dinner and watch the sun go down. I've always taken photographs since when I was a small child, but only when we moved to the Pacific Northwest did I have the specific interest of birds and even more specifically flying birds. And so I've been photographing flying birds for about 15 years now. It's a great place to photograph birds, Lopez Island, is we can be in the kitchen and we can be looking out on the tree by the side of the bay, and there will be one or more eagles in the tree, bald eagles. And so I find bald eagles just irresistible to photograph.
I was always moving in the direction that I have now taken. When we moved here, I originally took Peter's studio. The studio that he now has was too dark for me. Ultimately, I remember you said to me one day, I think we need to build you a studio.
Yeah, there used to be a greenhouse where Annie's studio is, and it was just a perfect location. I think one of the things I like most about our house is that we both have our separate spaces to do our art. We both have the artistic space that we need, and then we can come back to the house and be together. That's the thing I like most about the house. I have everything that's meaningful to me, apart from my kids and grandkids, in the studio. It's my happy place, and I think the same is true for you.
Oh, absolutely. It was very interesting when we were asked if we would give talks at the community center, and my first response was absolutely not. And Peter coerced me into...
Persuaded?
Yes, persuaded me. And I thought that was so wonderful as well. I think that that experience of giving lectures together was wonderful. I am much more of a hermit than Peter is, and I found when I would take Lily for walks, I'd have to introduce myself as, oh, I'm Peter Cavanagh's wife. Oh, Peter, yes,
yes,
Peter.
but that's no longer true. So, yeah, and you're not such a hermit as you think you are. So. We recently gave a joint presentation together, and there's a photographer on the island, Robert Harrison, who has just a delightful young boy, Cedar. I think he's 6 years old. One thing I often say in my talks about bird flight is that when you ask a kid how birds fly, they will do this, which is not the way birds fly. And so I said to Robert, I think I have a part for Cedar in my talk.
Now, Cedar, how do most grown-ups think that birds fly? Could you show us? Right. All right, up and down, up and down. But we know the birds don't actually fly like that, do they? Right. Right. So, can you show us how birds really fly? There you go.
And it was just a delightful moment in the talk.
I've always been a painter. I was a graphic illustrator before I went back into painting full-time. I didn't take up pottery until probably about 8 years ago. That started a new wonderful journey for me, and it is so therapeutic. You can totally immerse yourself in pottery, just like with painting.
I like it that you can create in your clay, for example, from start to finish, and I can photograph the result for you.
Yes.
And so that's another nice connection that we have. One thing that's new for me since we've been on Lopez is that I have started to write books and publish books. The first book was called 100 Flying Birds, and it's really a coffee table book which describes my travels around the world looking for interesting birds. And so there are 100 birds and 100 stories. I had actually been pondering about writing a book called How Birds Fly for more than a decade. It's just a really new facet to my life that is very rewarding.
It's been an interesting, long journey, and I think for so long, he was the scientist and I was the artist, and there wasn't the same kind of connection. And now I think we have this wonderful sort of symbiotic relationship in that we understand where the other is coming from in a more meaningful way. It's just really been delightful.
I came to Lopez in 1988 with my partner Rod Morgan. We were both looking for a big change in lifestyle. Rod had received an AIDS diagnosis the previous year. I happened to be living in London, had a very high-pressure corporate job, and really was burned out. And he was an architect, and he needed to not be in that high-stress firm that he worked for any longer. So one weekend, we just came up to the San Juan Islands thinking, oh, you know, let's look at some locations. Maybe we'll find a place where we can open a little coffee shop or a cafe or something. During that weekend, we happened to come to Lopez, and as we were driving up Lopez Road, we dead-ended right into this beautiful old building that had been there for many years. We opened the Bay Cafe there. Really was just a lark. Fortunately, we had this little going concern, this little business, and it really was a beautiful thing. It ended up running for another 20 years after I sold it, so it was here for a long time. And at this time, Rod met Sandy Bishop. And Rod, being an architect, he and Sandy were very interested in affordable housing because Rod and I didn't have housing, and a lot of our staff at the Bay didn't have housing, sustainable housing. Sandy and Rod developed the Lopez Community Land Trust. And it was their project, and Rod spent the final 2 weeks of his life drawing the site plan for Morgantown, which was the first project bearing his name. And it was a beautiful time on the island. You know, people were really coming together around those kinds of issues like housing. You know, people came here looking for a different way to live, and they found it. And then around 2008, this house was being constructed. It was the 4th Lopez Community Land Trust project. It was a bold vision that they had to do not just sustainable but net zero housing, to really take advantage of the environmental imperatives that living on an island really posed for all of us, you know, really looking at that head on. I happened to walk through this house while it was under construction. It wasn't until 8 years later that I moved in here. But in 2016, I was able to qualify to get this house, to buy the share, and to be a part of this community. And very grateful that that was in the cards for me. So these houses, you know, the straw bale is used for insulation, and this is by far the most well-insulated home I've ever lived in. In the mornings, I particularly like sitting here, and I'm able to see the roses, and I'm a big fan of the rose garden. So I look at the roses. You know, pink has never really been a color that I've resonated with, but now that I've lived here and lived with pink roses, I found my way to pink. I don't do much with it in my art, but it's fine because it's right there. I can take it in whenever I need a pink feel. Just look over there. Oh yeah, there's pink. I love it. Well, I've thought about my relationship to the garden and what it is that I want from that. And I'm not really one to want to control it. I just want it to be as bodacious and sort of almost out of control as it can be. I want it to just express itself. When I wake up, I often will just start working right away, because much of the work that I do is subconsciously driven. I like to get right to it. I started because I took art in college, and I did a lot of art coming out of college, of course, you know, as we do. And I realized when I was doing it that this was something that I really could lose myself in. You know, I could lose a sense of time. And it was that moment that I realized, oh yes, this is what I'm looking for. Any activity which will give me the ability to lose my sense of time. I think it's what I have to offer. You know, it's my form of service to others, is inspiring people to be creative themselves, not just look at my creativity, but look what you can do. Because I don't have any special gifts around it. I think that I just do what I do. You know, and people either they appreciate it or they don't necessarily appreciate it, and it's fine with me either way. But what I'm hopeful about is to inspire other people. I think having any kind of work environment in your home, if you live in a small space, it's a lifestyle choice. You have to come to terms with yourself first. Can you live in a space that has many different functions? And you also need a really good organization system for your materials and tools, because otherwise it very quickly becomes frustrating to try and do something. Like my latest was I got into gel plate monotypes. That's my new thing that I'm working on right now. You know, that came out of drawings. That just came out of ink drawings, and realizing what I could transfer from a simple drawing into a printmaking technique. But all these little creatures up in here, those were monotype gel prints before they became those. I'm always looking at experiments and doing new things. I love suite images, which are numerous small images that carry a theme. I don't consider myself an abstract artist per se, because it locks you in to not representing anything per se. But I have to say I did enjoy the Gathering Place experience. I liked that a lot. I think the people were interested, they were curious, and you know, we need people to be curious as artists. Without that, it's a pointless exercise, right? It's funny to say this, but some of my least connected abstracts have sold for the most amount of money. It is fascinating though, because you'll take a piece that's far less thoughtful and it'll go like that. Because I think it's up to people, Everybody has their own read. It's art, so it has to speak to you.
It was in '79. We were visiting friends in Seattle, and they said, well, you got some extra time before you fly back. Why don't you go camping in the San Juans?
And we stopped and we camped at Audlin. And we liked it. We felt it was really a great spot. So the next day we met with a realtor.
Really felt friendly people there. Friendly. It was warm. It was seeing just the children play in that children's center. It's just like, this would be a great place to raise a child.
We looked at a few places, and Pete found a spot that had sun, and I found a spot that had trees, and the trees won out. We slept on the road.
Right, yeah, at the end.
The second night.
Just to see how this feels.
And we bought the land.
Yeah. So that was 3 days, and we were landowners. We met an architect in LeConner, Court Liddell is his name. Then he found a builder, Brian Duncan here. It was completed in 2010. This is a favorite space of ours, just for enjoying the openness of a space.
I actually love to sit in one of the chairs and look out the windows in the morning and just sort of enjoy the space.
We asked for a lot of windows in this house. We like to look at nature. But the default of that is we don't have enough places to hang art because we've got so many windows. The deck is covered with a translucent material, and we really enjoy the light that comes through that. That is wonderful.
Also, you can sit outside when it rains.
Because the house is well done, she spends her time in the garden and on her fern hill.
I saw a fern hill that was just fabulous. And I thought, well, we live on a hill, and I think that would be a lot of fun to do. And besides that, maybe we wouldn't have to mow. There have been a lot of surprises. In Miami, we lived in a flat area, and we lived in the suburbs. And so moving out here was a big learning curve. Deer eat everything, and what the deer don't eat, the slugs eat.
We both taught our careers, and then we were able to move out here. And we had made art at that time, and we asked for a studio space to be included, just as one space. And that was for the ceramic studio over there in the wing of the house. And Pat was making her art in a small spot in the bedroom. And she outgrew that space, says, why don't you have a studio built? And so we did, and Mark Dawson was a builder for that. He did an excellent job. And then I moved up there, Pat moved over there, and we've been happy ever since. If you're just trying to find a space, you have a passion and for making art or making anything, you would take what works for you and make it work. Try to take the largest space, because there's never enough room for whatever you get involved with. Your passion will lead you into what you're going to make, and you succeed with that.
My art, I'm a fabric person, and so I make quilts at the moment, and I make a lot of quilts that are useful, and some wall hangings that are more adventuresome.
I've made pottery, but really I'm into sculpture. It's always been sculpture. primarily hand building with slabs. I have an interest in architecture also. I started to get into cleaner lines instead of the organic rocks and plants. And I started a series of boats back in the 80s. I just like working in clay, and once I start, I lose track of time. Clay speaks to me. It grabbed me. As soon as I started it, in college, I was an art major. I took an extra course in ceramics, and I was hooked.
I certainly feed off of Pete's work, and his ability to use color is what I seem to feed off of. Living in your house and then having your studio nearby, you can just walk up to your studio when you're ready to work. It's very convenient, and it's just very nice.
Yeah, I would say it's quite handy to just be able to walk to it. She has 20 steps, and I have about 200 steps. One of the things I really made a long time ago, and I still really think is one of my best pieces I've ever made, is a bread wagon. Now we live with this bread wagon for a very long time. Yeah, I'm very pleased with the result on that. Something else I like a lot are some quarter round pieces that are on the deck with more color. I never used to use color, but that sort of came into my life midway in the career. I've got a piece tucked over there on the other end of the deck, which is figurative. This is early in my career. I started this figure, but he didn't know what he was, or he just kind of finished himself, and it's an unresolved piece, frankly, but I do like the result. Oh, there's a penguin down below over here, and he used to sit on the deck, but it looks much better that we put him out there in a little cove. He has his own little space now, and he's happier. Also enjoy making the wall pieces that hang on the wall. There's some up there, there's one in the kitchen and on the wall there. I like. And I have some pieces on the outside of the studio, and also on the inside, what's hanging in there are pieces that I really enjoy.
And one of my favorite pieces is the wall piece that's on the design wall. And it's 2 half circles. And I really like the way the little half circles have little lines of fabric through them. It looks like a real quiet piece, but there is a little action going on in there. And the truck piece, I like that one. It was sort of a graduation gift for our son from high school. It has the labels from his t-shirts, the size labels from his t-shirts, and the license plate is a t-shirt that says Diesel because his nickname is Diesel. So in a sense, we do have a routine and we do go to work. But I don't think we really feel that it's work.
Earlier I'd said that we thought this would be a great place to raise a child.
Right.
Well, now we have grandchildren that come out here, so we're just rounding it off.
My dad and mom bought property in 1957, and my memories are coming up here to just camp. There was no structure. There was the ground and trees and the beach. The influence that my parents had on me, particularly my dad, he developed it. It was just a work in progress. There was always a project to do. I just took interest in working this little space and working on something as a kid, and my dad would give me jobs and I went about doing them. So I feel pretty connected to the cabin in that way. I feel like the intent was to come here and let things go and relax. And so I kind of just inherently in my own way signed on to that and the memories of that. So I just kind of like to keep it the same. It needs to still be current, move forward, but the flavor needs to stay in my mind. point is here is to create, rest, eat, play, do nothing, and my mom would say the rules are there are no rules. The space I like the best about the cabin, well, I like them all because I think my dad touched every nail in the place. I don't know that I have a favorite corner, although I will say, sitting right here looking out, I have memories of my dad having his coffee, looking straight out there and just thinking and looking. Definitely influenced me as an artist because I liked creating. I liked looking and scavenging and noticing, and my dad and I, we would find these buoys on the beach. They'd wash up and I'd bring it up all happy with my junk, and I had these notions to paint them. And then my dad up in one day took one of the buoys and stick a nail on the house and just hung up that buoy, and it became the decor, you know, the beachside decor. The 2 back rooms of the cabin happened early on, and my mom and dad had an agreement they couldn't build anything unless that board was paid for. We would even joke about, this is the year of this happened, and this is the year of the kitchen, and we would actually film ourselves turning the sink on and the water's happening, and yay, we have running water. The cabin being small and pint-sized, we've adapted so many things to the space. My dad, again, being a DIY guy and can't waste material, this table on the other side, if you looked, climbed under here, it's a door, and this has been here since I was a kid. This cabin, I probably would guess 60% of it is something recycled, and I kind of like that. The studio was added about 6 years ago, and that's, you know, part of the evolution for me, because growing up we'd sit here painting rocks, painting a piece of driftwood, or sitting on the beach painting. I was the kid that gravitated to paint something, and eventually you know, you get this notion and an idea. I go, you know, it would be nice, what about a little shed that I could paint in? And being married to a builder, you go, he's like, what kind of shed? I go, well, you know, somewhere I can just get good light and paint, and we just kind of talked about that. But I really did a lot of painting that's in my studio now on this kitchen table, actually. To me, the studio is also there to accommodate whatever the need is of the moment. And so I've left it pretty, it's tiny and it's tight, but I try to utilize the vertical space. And I feel fortunate, again, being married to a builder and growing up in tight spaces here and looking at space use. These are topics that are part of my life, is interior design and building. We're always looking at those things. And then we come up here and look at how we can apply it. I think when I paint, what I choose is something I want to stop time. Maybe I want to have a moment where I'm showing somebody, hey, did you notice that? Or, wow, I just saw this. Or, wow, look at that color. Or, you know, as I've described to people, if you're on a trip and you take somebody somewhere and you want to go, hey, look at this, or, oh my gosh, I kind of lean into that and take a moment where I've noticed an object, or I notice a color, or I look at a scene and I just want to stop that scene in time. I definitely do a lot of maritime because here I am looking at water. I can't not look at water, I think. I use blue and green the most in most of my painting, and maybe that's because I live in Washington. A new chapter for my art. It's new for me to try to be on the creative end. I was my whole life looking at the art of the Northwest Coastal Native art, form line, totem poles, carvings, bowls, paddles. On my mom's side, we're Southeast Alaska natives. I'm a Tsimshian native, and I grew up looking at that, not only as an artist, but as a native myself. I feel a little bit responsible to take that on. Creating the paddles was my first sort of foray into painting on cedar, and that's coming and painting drums and learning it. Again, any culture, but in the Tsimshian culture, you have your weavers, your carvers. Gosh, all the regalia that you make, there's such art form that goes into it. The people that are sewing and weaving and drawing and creating. Being a painter, I just gravitated to painting objects. Recently doing the pop-up at the library, that was my first time doing a pop-up. And when you have this mobile moment, you need to learn how to pack up art and move it to a space and then create an ambiance, because it's just ingrained in me to try to create some ambiance of the space. How do you do this on the move? And so going to do that was fun. There's always a takeaway of how you would do it each time. You go from being the kid to helping dad, to being the teenager that mowed the lawn and did a few things, to going, oh, we're the 30-year-old adults. My parents just said, just handle it. And they didn't direct us, they didn't tell us. They said, do what you would do. Do what you would do to your space, to a space. Okay, and we did. And my dad was happy about it and took that off his plate. And I think we had a little torch maybe passed at that moment. My mom is 91, she's doing great, and I hope I have that DNA and keep on ticking. And so she still owns the cabin with us, and she gets to, we joke, you get all the enjoyment and benefits, and we'll do all the work, Joyce.
I came to Lopez for a teaching job. 1972 was a hard year to find a teaching job, and this was the one that was open.
I got here with Shirley Wright and Bernie Sundell, straight out of Washington State University Graduate School. We all had master's degrees in fine arts, and we were going to find a place to start a private art school. We came over here and got on the ferry about 15 minutes away from the dock at Anacortes. We all looked at each other and said, this place is fantastic. So we landed on Lopez. She bought the property, which is now Barnell Bakery near Hummel Lake. And Bernie and I were young and dumb enough to think that we could remodel that building into living quarters, classroom spaces, studio spaces, all the things we needed for an art school. Plus we'd grow a garden, we'd shoot deer if we had to. Whatever it took, we would be able to survive on the island. So that's how I got here.
I had a roommate, Satterthwaite. Her grandparents owned this property. And so they weren't here year-round, and they were willing to rent to me. So I started renting, then met him, and we got married and would like to buy it. And they put it up for sale, so that's kind of how we came into it.
We were full-time teachers for about a 4-year period before I decided to do a little leave of absence and start a graphics company. The graphics company, by the way, is now called Paper Scissors on the Rock. And Ron Hall has done an incredible job of making it into a viable, profitable business. A tragedy hit in 1979. The house caught fire. And it was from creative wiring from several other owners prior to the Satterthwaites. This fire was alive and well, and we had to get out of that house. So I got out the back door with one son under each arm. Carol Weeks was the first on the scene with a fire truck, followed by several volunteer firemen. The house was a total loss. Happy ending to the story. We got out alive, the dog got out alive, and we had a house to stay in that night with a former school teacher here, Doug Cardle, who adopted us for the next 4 months, kids and all. And then we thought about what we had to do to rebuild a house, which took us 3 years to even start on this project. We finally went to an architect named John Ottenheimer, who I'm sure a lot of people on Lopez would be familiar with. He had worked with Frank Lloyd Wright for 18 years. And was an expert at solar design. And we started construction on this house in 1979. So everything about the house that John designed for us was to a T. He even made a 3rd floor studio for me that's labeled on the plan, the Crow's Nest. Now that I feel like an old crow, you know, I think it's an appropriate name that he gave to that. The rule we had with John was everybody has to wake up in the morning with a view of Swift Bay, Port Stanley, okay? Because we just wanted that to happen. And so he made the bedrooms up there for the 3 boys so that they all had a view of the bay when they woke up. And our bedroom up here, of course, had a big, beautiful view of the bay and still does. And now that the boys have moved on, Judy's adapted that space for her.
We have a guest bedroom and my hobby room.
Yeah, and her hobby room. The solarium is not only a great place to paint a nor'easter from, it provides heat for the house. It's only 5 feet wide, but it provided this whole layer of dead air space out there that breaks up the storms and the cold coming in. And so it just been great for all of that.
It collects the heat and we can open the doors and let the heat in.
We had the perfect exposure, southeast exposure for a solar design house. Passive solar, yeah.
My favorite spot, besides downstairs, is the little secret computer room that I have, and my hobby room upstairs that we have converted from the bedroom.
My favorite spot is, we're sitting in it right here, the kitchen, living room. It's where everything happens in this house on a daily basis. My other favorite spot, of course, is my studio, the Crow's Nest on the 3rd floor. So I spend a lot of hours up there in the winter time when I can't be outside painting, and it has an incredible view, so the lighting in there is perfect for daylight, for painting. And beyond that, my other favorite spot's right out here in the yard and all over the world as an artist.
So with Steve and his art, it's been an amazing adventure because I've gotten to go to places that we probably wouldn't have done. And I've learned a lot by going through his workshops. I can tell people what to do, but I can't do it.
Well, when people come into our home, they go, wow, look at that view. No wonder you're an artist. And I think that kind of says it all, you know. I mean, I do work from here a lot. I do a lot of paintings from the yard here or down on the beach. There's an infinite supply of subject matter out there, and I just love it. You really have to draw a lot to be able to do the kind of work that I do. So that's when the whole concept of having an art gallery and studio in the house started. I tried to take an oil painting workshop, but there were none available, so I took a pastel workshop. I'd never touched a pastel stick in my life, and now I use it exclusively. And I can layer the colors. I can make it look like transparent water. I can make it look like opaque rock. I can make it look airy and light, like atmosphere in the distance, or fog, or whatever. And I can get effects that are very critical for landscape painting that you can't really do easily with the liquid mediums and then expect them to last over time. Plein air, by the way, is it's a French term coined by a French journalist who was trying to describe all of the easels littering the countryside, as he said in an article in one of the Paris newspapers. And it just simply refers to on-site, outside, in front of live subject matter. Being outdoors, you only get maybe 2 hours at any setting to be able to paint and capture the light and the mood and the action before everything changes so much that you're painting a completely different scene. This volcano painting up on the fireplace here, that's Kilauea volcano. I painted 2 paintings at that volcano in one morning. We got there because we understood it was going to erupt, and it performed beautifully. It erupted at about the time we got there. And I'm thinking, what am I even doing out here? You know, this is crazy. And the earth is rumbling and the thing's going, you know. It was an incredible feeling. And I thought, wow, I got it. I really think that's one of the best paintings I've ever done in my life.
While he's painting, I can explore and take pictures and show him the pictures and say, hey, this might be a place for you to paint. Well, one thing I'd like to say is that after our house fire, the community still does it. They chipped in and donated bedroom furniture and kitchen things. I think we still have some of that, and
Yep.
it's a nice place to be when you have a crisis, and they still do that for people.
Yeah, this community is incredible, always has been.
Linda's parents had a place near Roach Harbor on San Juan Island, and we'd go there and we liked that. But in those days, every ferry went to every island, and so Lopez was the first stop. So we thought, let's look at that.
I took a weaving class with a woman that had a place on Lopez, and she said, you should look on Lopez, you can stay in our house. And so that was our first experience really on Lopez. We drove around with a realtor.
Yeah.
We loved it. And everyone was waving, and
The
we went,
realtor
why?
said, this woman knows everybody.
Yeah.
So after a while, we figured it out.
Yeah. And we built the cabin, and we didn't have water.
But we built the cabin with a generator. I mean, we didn't have power when we actually built it.
And we had 3 carpenters for 6 weeks, and then we did the rest. But the problem is it gets dark in the woods early. And we had friends that lived across the street, and they'd always invite us over.
Just the top of the driveway.
Yeah, they'd invite us over for cocktails. And it was bright and sunny for hours.
In the summer, it's 6 o'clock back there. It's like,
Yeah.
okay. And we come out here and go, whoa, there's a whole nother day out here. We need to get some of this for our future.
Yeah, so we started looking, and we wrote to everyone around here, and nobody wanted to sell anything. And finally, our neighbor saw an ad in the Seattle paper written by the woman that owned this saying her place was for sale.
But once we knew it was for sale, then we started to snoop.
I had the boys and one of their friends, and we came down. We knew they weren't here, so we came down, and the boys.
I was back in Seattle.
And the boys played on the beach, and I sat on this awful deck, and the sun started to set, and the herons went by, and the otters were out there, and the sand was pink from
the tide was going out, so the still wet, so the sunset was reflected in the sand as well as the water and the sky.
It was a religious experience.
That's been a quote.
So finally, I went back to the cabin, and we'd put a phone in, so I called Dean, and I said, you know, it doesn't matter what they're asking, we have to buy this. And that was it. And then we bought 2 other pieces of property that adjoined over time. And that's how we have the garden property and the studio property. We've been here since '93.
It was very nondescript.
Very rustic.
And low ceilings.
Lots of bugs. No upstairs. So it has been remodeled twice. We remodeled it once and built the upper story. And then when we sold our house in Seattle, we remodeled again. It's really evolved. I mean, our lives have really evolved too, and our Lopez experience has really evolved. Well, the big window in there is pretty wonderful because it has just an amazing view. And really all the rooms on the view side are pretty special.
When the tide's in, it seems like you're on a boat, but it's not rocking. And the sunsets from along the west side here.
Amazing.
Really.
Last night we had the window open, And the waves are just amazing, and it wasn't even that rough a night. But sometimes there's a big storm, and it's pretty incredible. Seeing the waves are enormous hitting these rocks, and you know, it's a great show. These rocks in the bulkhead came from Orcas Island on the ferry, every rock. If you can believe that. We tried to have a barge, but it's too shallow and too muddy, and it just wouldn't work. So they brought them from Orcas, and it was an Orcas company, so it worked. And then here we just moved rocks ourselves, and we did have a guy build the stairs and walls up there to kind of level out the property, because we didn't want to do all our gardening on a slope. So
yeah, we have retaining walls up in the garden itself, and then above that is where the studio is. And as a child, I had a swimming pool on the farm, so I really liked the idea of that and wanted that as part of my progeny's future and our own. And so that we put in up there on the upper level, and that's where Lynda decided to make it Mediterranean. So there's different style plantings up there, and then the kind of more formal section, and then the Northwest Contempo that comes down towards the hill.
It's all kind of silly, but it's fun. And you know, we just let the plants that want to live there instead of really regulating it and controlling it. So it has a structure, but it's kind of wild. And it's on the way to my studio, so it is pretty glorious to wander around the garden before I go in there. And sometimes I never make it in. I just, you know, pull weeds or whatever. So most years I do the studio tour. I started doing textiles originally, and then moved into 2D art. I have a printing press. I did a lot of printmaking, which I haven't been doing. I've kind of evolved into painting. And then I also do a lot of natural dyeing with my garden plants. So I still do textiles, and it makes you look at the garden so differently. It's really fun. It's just a big experiment. Almost all plants will give you a color. So upstairs I do the textile part because the studio is not very big. And so once I make the fabrics, dye the fabrics, then I do stitching and all that upstairs. So anyway, Dean's shop is right next to mine because he does welding.
And plasma cutting, and well, you notice the gate that you came in, and there's a gate along in the hedge by the studio that you'll see that I made.
And I've used some of his work to make prints from, which is really cool. You can ink up the metal and then run it through the press, and so make a print. So it's fun to combine our, like I designed the gate and he made it, you know, it's pretty wonderful.
And also there's your found art.
Oh yeah, so yeah, I used to do a lot of found art, and it's because when we moved here, I didn't have my press. It was in Seattle. And so I would go to the take it or leave it and find stuff and put them together. And so I did a lot of that, and it was very fun. Well, we love to make things. I mean, it's just, I always have my whole life made things.
And then there's a garage. It's never ever been used as a garage because it was, she did it as the garage gallery.
Yeah, right away I got that idea.
It'll be on the studio tour this year. And so now it's got paintings all over the walls and sculptures.
Yep. We did make furniture from logs from our old property. And there's a piece right here, our coffee table. And the dining room table, which is made out of cedar, which is kind of soft, but we're getting all the marks from the kids, the teeth marks and the scratches. And, you know, we kind of like that. So we have 3 grandchildren. Our lives have changed a lot since we've been here. We did so much work, and it's just the way we wanted it.
Yeah, it'd be different if we just sort of saw this and bought it and plopped here.
Every stage of our lives, it's been great.
Yeah. Damn, that was good.
We did it.